Welcome to the Harpe Bio podcast. I'm Dr. Alex Danis, and in today's episode, we'll be hearing from Ambassador Kip Tom. Ambassador Tom served as the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Agencies for Food and Agriculture from 2019 to 2021. Currently, he's a director at Harpe Bio, as well as a managing member of Tom Farms LLC, president at Saraserve Incorporated, and founder managing member of Global Ag LLC. We talked to Ambassador Tom about his work with the United Nations Agencies for Food and Agriculture and what he learned about the global challenges facing farmers right now. So thank you so much for talking to me today. Can you tell me your name and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Kip Tom. I'm a farmer from Indiana, but just most recently served as the U.S. Ambassador to the Rome-based UN agencies focused on food and agriculture.
Can you tell me a little bit about being a farmer? What has this happened in your family? I know this goes back many generations. How did you come to be a farmer?
Obviously, as a young child, I was the oldest of 5 children. You always wanted to follow in your father's footsteps. You're 2, 3 years old. You're just learning to walk. You're walking with him, and you're going out. You're doing chores. You're feeding the cattle. You maybe have that dream or aspiration to someday driving that tractor that he's driving, or you start out by walking in the furrow behind him with your dog as a young boy, and that all sets the stage of your interest in doing what Dad did. I just lost my father a year ago, February, at 93 years of age, and he ran through the finish line, but we had a lot of good memories, and I'm proud that I come from a family farm. I got 3 sisters that are with me today. I lost a brother, but family values that go with farming are great, and that's one of the reasons why I farm today. It's one of these occupations that very few can you have the legacy or the passion that goes with agriculture that you can transition into another generation. It's hard to do that when you produce a widget, where we're working with land, we're working with Mother Nature, working with the technologies we have available to us, and hopefully make a business out of it.
Do you have children who are going to continue this on after you?
Yeah, I do. I have 5 children. I've got 2 sons and a daughter that are involved at the farm today. I got a sister, Melissa, that's there as well. So family legacy, and my mother's still very knowledgeable what's going on at that farm on a daily basis, living there next to the farm.
And so we drove through your farm a little bit earlier, at least one small portion of it. Can you actually tell me about the land itself? How big is it? Have you been expanding it over the years? What does the farm itself look like?
Yeah, I think when I was born, Mom and Dad were farming probably in that area of maybe somewhere around 150, 180 acres. They had cattle, had hogs, chickens, hay. We were a very diverse farm, very typical for the Midwest. Over the years, as we transitioned, we started feeding more cattle, got into cow-calf, and then started to expand our cropping operations and started to irrigate. And then as I got out of high school, I didn't have the luxury, I didn't have the ability to go to college, so I came right back to the farm, and we started from there, and we really grew. And so we're quite a bit larger today than when we were back in 1955, but it's a business, and you got to have scale, and scale gives you the ability to invest in technologies and innovations. It gives you the ability to bring family members back into it, and someday I hope my grandchildren are a part of it. I can say this, some of my grandkids have walked in that furrow behind me, and there's nothing better than looking back and seeing them back there walking behind you, hoping that someday they'll be here at this farm too.
So you come from many generations of farmers, and in 2019, you became an ambassador. Tell me a little bit about that transition. How'd you go from being a farmer to an ambassador?
Yeah, that's an interesting transition. Someone says, well, you're a farmer and now you're a U.S. ambassador, and I was fortunate. It's a rare opportunity, and one that I remember the call came in on a Friday afternoon from one of our U.S. senators, Senator Todd Young from Indiana, who was on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he called and he says, I have the obligation to find somebody to fill this role to serve as the U.S. ambassador to the Rome-based UN agencies focused on food and agriculture globally. Would you be interested? And I said, Well, I think so, but I need to research it a little bit. I'll call you back on Monday. And I spent the weekend really reading up on it, trying to understand, can I fill this obligation? Can I make sure that I serve the interests of the United States and the people around the world we're trying to serve? And I came to the conclusion that, yes, I can do that. And I'll take this opportunity if so allowed. And so I spent about a year and a half going through all the process to become a U.S. ambassador. Hundreds of interviews with friends of mine by different government agencies, meetings with members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in Washington, D.C., and getting the approval by the full Senate by a vote. So it was quite an interesting path to go through. And it seems like it happened in a blink of time that once I got to Rome and the ability to serve and walk into the FAO organization and walk into the World Food Program and have that impact. It was interesting because of the 192 countries represented at FAO. There was only one farmer.
Wow, really? You were it?
I was the only farmer there. So it was interesting conversations when we look at this is the body, this is the organization. It sets a lot of policy and standards for global agricultural production, from Codex Alimentarius to how food and crops are produced around the world. So it was fun being the only voice, but at the same time, you had a lot of competing voices out there that got their instructions from their capital back in their own country that took opposition to some of the things that we wanted to promote.
I mean, that's kind of incredible to me that you were the only farmer there, the only person with this experience. What benefit did that experience bring to your time in that organization?
Well, it certainly helped me understand the complexities of trying to get anything done in a UN organization and with 192 other competing voices. So it's not easy, but there's a lot of bureaucracy at the UN organizations, and oftentimes it would be said to me, we can't do it that way. Well, we did it that way, and we got some things done, and there's some things we didn't get done that I would have liked to have accomplished while serving, but nonetheless, I feel that we made a difference. We changed the tone. In fact, just moments ago, I just talked to the Argentine ambassador, and he was continuing on with some of the work that we were promoting to advance some of these technologies that are being used in the United States, that are being used in Argentina as well, to communicate that message to the Committee of Food Security and the Rome-based agencies.
So what were some of those goals that you had while you were there? What was some of the work that you were trying to get done?
I wanted to promote a food system that would support people from around the world. Obviously someone that lives on the island of Niue, which is a country, I don't know, a few thousand people, they have a much different diet than somebody in Leesburg, Indiana, or somebody in Munich, Germany, or Rome, Italy, or Khartoum, Sudan. So we need to make sure that we were adaptive to the demand there is around the world, the different nutritional requests that people have, and making sure that then they had the natural resource, or make sure that they were able to leverage their natural resources in a manner that would protect the environment, that would allow them to feed themselves, but also allow them the ability to trade and create economic opportunities for the people. So it was a good experience from that light. But the bureaucracy was something that would always try to hold you back, but you had to say, we can still get this done. You try to find that common ground. Even though we'd have differences with some of the people that were serving there as ambassadors, we always would take the time and meet with them. We'd try to get them on a personal level and talk to them about, what we do as a family farmer back in the United States. And not always do we get our way, but we need to work with others to make sure we can find a common ground and make the world a better place.
And what are some of the challenges that globally farmers are facing to do that, to feed the people of their own country, to make the world a better place? What are some of those challenges that farmers everywhere are up against?
Yeah, when you get into the developing world, you've got corrupt governments or leaders, and not as though that doesn't exist in the developed world as well. You have lack of access to capital markets for a farmer to borrow money to just go out there and buy the critical elements of seed or maybe some fertilizer to produce a crop to feed his own family. A lot of these farmers are only farming maybe a hectare to feed their family of 5. They're living on less than $2 a day. Wow. So that was some of the challenges there. But I would say education is critical. And today, as we see continuing build out of broadband and use of sometimes different levels of phone technologies, we can get education out into some of these remote places throughout Africa, throughout the Middle East, throughout Southeast Asia, parts of Latin America, and even in the United States. That we can get this level of education out there so people can understand what's available and help them make sure that they can play a role in agriculture and food production.
So I think some of that comes back a little bit to the fact that there are so many new technologies that have come out over the past 5 years, 10 years, 15 years that are affecting agriculture, are changing the way that people are farming. Can you talk a little bit about how even your own farm has changed in how it was farmed in 1955 to now?
Yeah, there's been many changes occur on our own family farm since 1955. But, you look at the way we tilled. We were probably releasing carbon into the atmosphere, the way we applied fertilizer, all those things, the elements that we work with in utilizing our natural resources, which has changed substantially. Education's changed substantially. Our workforce, our markets, who we sell to, who we buy from, the way we leverage digital technology, all this has changed dramatically, affecting how we produce food, fiber, and energy. So when I think about this in light of the technologies that are available today, I always want to look at the technologies that's people that are walking in and darkening the hallways of our door, walking into the office and saying, we've got something new for you that's just going to be great. We get those every day. And we are very early integrators of new technologies. We usually adapt pretty quickly, and we can use it, and we fail. We fail at times because we feel if we don't take some risk and fail occasionally, maybe we're not taking enough risk. So I want to say that today, when we look at a lot of the biological products that are out there, and I made this comment to a CEO of a very, very large company that's involved in seed and traits and crop care products, is as you bring new products to the market, we as a farmer, we operate from year to year. We got here where we're at in northern Indiana, one crop cycle a year. Where I'm not like somebody that's working at a Ford motor plant stamping out 10,000 fenders a day.
No.
If he fails once in a while, it's okay. We got one chance to succeed or fail in a period of 365 days. And that season's about ready to start here in April. So when we select a product to use on our farm, we need to make sure that it's going to more than likely perform. It needs to be durable under different environmental conditions and different management styles. It needs to make sure it can perform under different environments, whether it's a drought or excessive water. So we just can't bring anything in terms of new products to the farm unless we know that it's got a high likelihood of success to perform on our farm. Because if not, the consequences are pretty substantial, whether it's the income to our farm, but it's also that consumer around the world that may now have, if too many people adopted this technology, all of a sudden it doesn't have enough food or they can't afford it. So we need to make sure that we're using the right products and that they're durable and reliable.
How do you judge that as someone who is taking these risks? And I think, I would hope that there's a little bit more flexibility based on the size of your farm to be able to take a few more of these risks than someone who maybe has a smaller farm, that maybe you have a little bit more leeway in that. But how do you decide that, that product is one that I'm ready to take a risk on? I've seen XYZ data. That sounds terrifying to me. How do you make those decisions?
Well, we try to make sure that we're working with reliable suppliers to start with. Do they have a track record? And that doesn't mean we only work with people or companies that have been around for a period of time. We work with people that may have only been in existence, or companies that have only been in existence for a few years. But we will go through the due diligence of assessing these technologies and what they've delivered in the test results. We look at how broadly of this testing occurred across different geographical areas and production environments, and make sure that it has a fit for our farm. And then it does take substantially more effort on our farm to make sure that we're giving it the opportunity it does to make sure it's a product that we can use. It's we can't have just a one-off. We've got to have multiple places where we test side by side with other products to understand how it's going to perform. And if it doesn't perform in the first year, hopefully we'll give it another year. If it's showing promise, we'll try it again. But again, we have to be willing to embrace those new products as they come to the marketplace.
How did you first find out about Harpe, and what was it about that made you think that potentially this could be one of those products that you would take this kind of risk on?
Yeah, so I've known Bill Buckner for probably every bit of 12 to 15 years, and Bill was always highly respected in the crop care industry, bringing products, understanding the marketplace, making sure that the farmers' needs were met, but making sure also that the consumers' needs were met. And that we're providing a sustainable environment to produce in, where we focused on environmental, we focused on economic and social. And when I found out that Bill was doing this with Harpe and had a conversation with a number of other people, and then I had a conversation with Bill, I soon figured out that this is a solution. And reason it's a solution is like we've stated earlier, our ability to get new products to the market has been encumbered by a regulatory process that takes 15 to 17 years and costs hundreds of millions of dollars. And by the time it comes out, it's off of patent typically. And then at the same time, we've already probably given up yield for 5 or 10 years because we didn't have access to a product to help us meet the resistance that is taking place in our farms today, whether it's an insect or whether it's a disease or whether it's a weed. So this is what really excited me about Harpe. Here's something totally new mode of action that can really solve some problems and hopefully get to the marketplace sooner.
Have you tried Harpe on your farm yet?
We have not. We have not tried it. I hope to be able to try it very soon. Like I said, I'm concerned about our markets around the world. We got some that are wanting to remove our access to our ability to export products that we've maybe applied glyphosate to, or a GM product. And, Mexico being one of those. As I said, we're seeing that corn prices in Mexico will probably go up 19%. Wow. They said just the cost of a tortilla alone is going to go up 16%.
Wow.
So when you start looking at these things, these may be issues, but yet at the same time, it's an opportunity for a product like Harpe to get in the marketplace, be accepted, adapted, and meeting the needs of the farmer and the consumer.
What does it mean as well on the front end of Harpe that, this is a natural product, it is coming from plants? Is there an opportunity that the increase in demand for those plants is going to be, again, sort of a way to economically lift up farmers?
Yeah, so when you look at, I believe you're using a number of mint oil extracts to produce the Harpe product. Great opportunities for farmers. Instead of now some of the synthetic chemistries that we're using today, maybe now we can get something that's coming from nature. Mm-hmm. And dealing with some of these issues. I remember we were having this discussion here a while back, is you always notice underneath pine trees, nothing grew where the needles fell. Huh. Or there was an oil in those needles that would restrict the weeds from coming up underneath those pine trees. Well, some people took that and produced a product out of that controls weeds in some of our cornfields today. So I look as Harpe as another one of those natural solutions that can come out and help us control the weeds that we have on our farm. And like I said, many of them are becoming resistant. If I can talk to my farmers that work in the Delta, they've been dealing with resistance from on some of these weeds for quite some time, 15 years maybe. And it's a significant problem for them, and it's a growing concern and problem for those of us even up here in some of the northern states. So as we look at, looking at the supply chain to produce Harpe, we know that it takes these mint oil extracts, and, it's really exciting news when you see a major supplier, a company that handles all these mint oils, get involved in Harpe and trying to shore up that supply chain to make sure that this product has the ability to scale and to meet the farmers' needs across the United States and wherever in the world that are going to be selling this product in other places. So to me, it's really exciting, and it puts a lot of substance in behind the fact that Harpe it's real, and there's major companies saying, hey, we want to participate in this and be part of that supply chain.
That's great. I think it's great to be able to see sort of the upswelling of support
for initiatives like this. Because I think as someone, again, who's sort of outside of the agricultural industry, when I think of a weed in a field, I think of a single weed in a field that perhaps you could go out and pluck single-handedly. But what I'm learning through this process is that is not what these fields look like when we have these resistant weeds. Can you give people an idea of when you are battling these resistant weeds, what does that look like in the field? What are you actually trying to trample down or pull out or spray? How many weeds are there?
Well, I can't give you an exact number of how many weeds there are, but for instance, we got some weed species that one plant may throw off 10,000 seeds.
Wow.
So if it's resistance and it spreads those 10,000 seeds, and the next year, that's even a bigger problem because it continues to amplify itself. So this is why it's better to control weeds at the beginning than trying to catch up later on. And we have lacked the access to products to do that. Because of the regulatory process. So like I said, I can't tell you enough how important it is to have a product like Harpe that's going to come out and control this resistance and help us maybe use some of these other chemistries or other products that we've had in the past that can help shore it up on the backside, make sure we have the residual that we need to have to make sure that we have the controls we have in our fields.
Yeah, I think that's interesting to me, again, at least as a scientist, that it's both pre and post emergent. That seems relatively unique. One of the last things I want to ask you, when you think about this farm that's been in your family for generations and that you hope that your grandchild, walking behind you in that field, will be able to inherit and work on one day, why is it important to you to sort of protect that farm and protect the soil that this food is coming out of? Why does it matter that, we actually take care of this land versus just take as much as we can out of it and move on?
Yeah, as I said, I'm 10th generation and we're focused on our natural resources. It's taken a lot of time for a family to put together an operation like ours, and there's many more across the United States just like ours that have that focus on trying to sustain that family business, that family legacy. And we want to make sure we do it in a manner that allows them to be economically successful. What they do is good for society, and it's good for the environment. But we've got to continue to evolve and make sure we have the access to the products to do that.
I think the new technology that is coming to the market and the new innovation that is coming to agriculture will hopefully be a way to keep people's family farms stable, to keep them being able to feed not only their own families, but also other people's families in producing all of this food. What do you hope for the future of agriculture? What do you hope for, 20 years down the road when it is your grandkids, working down the field, or maybe that's 40 years down the road? What do you hope agriculture looks like for them at that point?
Well, I hope, when I think of agriculture and food, I look at it as a food system, and I think it starts all the way from the development of a molecule or something from nature like Harpe or some genetics, all the way to the consumer. And I really hope that we can have a consumer that understands the efforts and the levels that we go to on the farm to make sure that there's food on their plate, make sure that it's affordable, make sure it's nutritious. They can make the choices they want of what they want to consume. So to me, when I look at agriculture 20 years from now, it's more about making sure that we're more closely aligned and the consumer understands what the American farmer is and the legacy and the values that we hold close to us to make sure that we can be part of the food system for now and into the future.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It was an opportunity. Thank you.
That wraps up this episode of the Harpe Bio podcast. Special thanks go out to Ambassador Kip Tom and, of course, to our listeners. For more information on today's topic and Harpe Bio mission to provide a new environmentally safe and sustainable approach to weed control, visit harpebio.com. I'm Dr. Alex Danis, and we'll see you next time.